What's up? I'm Matt from Pseudonym. WhatsApp is the world's most popular messaging platform, and marketplace users are increasingly connecting, inquiring, negotiating, and transacting on it. But how do you, the marketplace, keep visibility and control of this process? We can help. With our WhatsApp solutions, you can prove in concrete terms the leads you're generating for your sellers. You can tell if and when those sellers are responding, you can block spammers, and you can do a whole lot more. Contact us on WhatsApp, of course, via the link on your screen to talk about how we can help. The first 5 conference attendees to sign up will get an awesome bonus.
Thank you very much to Andrew, Alejandro, and Ronnie for joining me today. We've got a great cast of characters to talk about what I think is, for me, and I think for many people, one of the most interesting topics out there is the automation of the real estate process, driving super efficiency, and with the eventual goal of maybe one day even removing face-to-face involvement in transactions. So I thought it'd be great for us to have 3 innovators who each in their markets are rolling out platforms, are doing sales electronically, to really talk about how they're building their businesses and to talk about some of the challenges that they are encountering. I'm going to quickly do around the grounds with each of the people today. Ronnie, could you please do an introduction?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me here, Simon. So always a pleasure to be with you guys. So, well, Alcubo, it's a pretty simple business. Alcubo is a new development brokerage of independent agents, meaning, we're getting to the transaction and we're monetizing once the transaction is done, and we're doing the transactions through a large force of independent agents.
Okay. Thank you, Ronnie. We're going to come back, talk more about your business shortly. Alejandro, can you give a bit of an overview of what you guys do?
Sure. And first and foremost, thanks for the invitation, Simon. So what we're doing in Neptuno is we're building a 3-sided marketplace, a curated marketplace. We're transactional, so we go all the way along the rentals vertical. And when I say 3-way, is because we're serving both tenants, landlords, and agents as well. So we're working along with agents to provide a lot of efficiency at the transaction level.
Okay. And finally, Andrew, it'd be great to get a bit of an overview of Homesteads and what they're doing.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm the founder of Homesteads. So what we are, we're an end-to-end transactional platform for new developments. So we have developers move their inventory faster. So we basically evaluate the project, set the strategy, drive the lead, verify the lead, process the lead, and hand it off to a closer, which whom we assist with a mortgage. And we make a percentage of the transaction and the mortgage deals generated.
Okay, that's honestly a good overview, and got some 3 very interesting businesses. 2 are in new development sales and 1 is in the rental space. But I think all of them have very consistent themes, which is taking existing end-to-end real estate process, optimizing the crap out of it, okay, removing inefficiencies, with the objective of then making sure that every deal closes with the highest gross margin possible to you guys, right? And that you do it at a much better rate than anyone else in the industry, and you hopefully charge the same commission rates as you go through the process. Now, I thought the best way to sort of go through this discussion is really break the processes down into a number of chunks: selection of property, marketing of property, management of leads, closing of the deal. Those sort of 4 buckets. We're going to sort of go around each of them to understand what are how do you approach it, and what are some of the challenges you found in doing that. So let's start with selection of the property. And Alejandro, I'm going to start with you because it's on the rental side. How do you choose which properties that you're actually going to put through your platform and which ones you are not going to waste your time on?
Sure. So pretty much what we're trying to do is through data, trying to understand demand as much as we can, and then we set out at the other side of the marketplace to try to prioritize that supply acquisition process. So we have different strategies and different conversion rates. We don't get too picky about it, but we get to prioritize just by trying to understand which is the most attractive kind of location, size, different features that an apartment may have. And in that manner, we're able to really be able to segment each of those customers on the supply side, and we're able to provide, if it's a potentially more attractive property, we're able to provide a little bit better discount, for example, on our fees, etc. So that way we're able to.
That does raise a question, right? What's your fee model?
Yeah, so we're transaction based at the beginning. So we closed only for after actually doing the match between supply and demand. And then we have a property management business, which is more of a recurrent revenue stream once we have closed the transaction.
Okay, so as distinct from some other type businesses, you want to do end-to-end being find a renter for a property, take the standard commissions that are offered in the industry, then go onto the property management side, and then leveraging technology to manage that. So we'll talk more about that in the next step. Ronnie, talk about how do you guys select property and what is the underlying business model that you have?
Sure. Well, we actually get into the transaction through 3 different verticals. And the very first one we call the Alcubo network. On this vertical, we are actually not generating leads. The agents are doing the lead generation and the whole qualification process. They bring to us and they sell through our inventory and using our license. On that business model, we were trying to, gather as much inventory as possible. So we have close to 90% of the local available inventory. So that's one of the verticals. The second one, it's called the iBroker, where we actually are, generating lead, investing, taking the risk from the agent and from the developer and investing on Facebooks and Groupos apps and so on. So on that model, we actually select, a few properties where we believe that we are going to generate liquidity and going to generate that liquidity fast. And the third vertical, that's also where we do invest some money on marketing that property, and that's the on-site sales. So we are very careful as well on that program to make sure that we're selecting winners projects, as we call, and make sure that we're generating liquidity and revenue for us as well. So again, we try to offer for the network as many inventory as possible. And on the 2 other verticals where we're actually spending more money and making investments, we try to be a little more selective in terms of the properties that we're trying to sell.
Okay. And when you select properties, what's the criteria that you use to pick a property? Is it marketability? Is it commission rate? Is it what's the key metrics?
Well, commission rate, that's for sure, but it's really about price wise and location. Really, the marketing team and the sales team, they get together to make sure that is that property really liquid, and is there a high demand for that kind of property based on our history on lead generation and so on. So that takes a big part on the deciding point on whether or not we're going to take and market those properties. But commission for sure. But at the end of the day, we've been able to as liquidity was delivered to the developers to increase the commission. So we don't try to get too attached to whether the commission is at the highest rate as possible, but as we deliver the results, we've been able to push the commission a little higher. So it's really about whether or not we believe that we're going to sell the property.
Okay. And Andrew, in your businesses, how do you select? First of all, what's the model, and then how do you select the right properties to put through the model?
Yeah, first of all, we want to work with every project which is out there. It just depends on the model, right? Because the more projects we work with, the better value we can provide for the buyers at the end of the day, right? So when we talk to a developer, we try to qualify him. So if he's willing to go transactional, then we just have a checklist through which we go how marketable it is. And he also passes like a beer test, basically how reasonable is the person behind the development and what's his reputation, because that's also important. So is he going to pay you at the end of the day? What's his reputation? And then we go into commission negotiations, which of course, the better the project, the lower the commission we can take him on, right? If he doesn't want to go transactional, or we conclude that we don't want to take him, right, then we can still offer him to advertise on our portal, and then he takes care of the leads and the closing and everything else.
Okay, so now when each of you think about lead generation, because clearly generating leads around whether it's a rental property or a new development, is it just limited to your site, or do you use every site in the market? How do you think about lead generation? And Alejandro, we'll start with you.
Sure. So we think at this stage, it makes a lot of sense to use everything we can in the market to just get that liquidity. So we're still working with traditional portals where we get a bunch of leads because their traffic it's a lot more relevant than ours direct traffic. But then once we get like that first touch point into our product, we're able to really get subsequent traffic from that lead, and we're able to better warm that lead just by doing retargeting, sending more emails, more recommendations. We have a recommendation algorithm, so we can provide more and more relevant properties and recommendations to these leads that got here first by the traditional channel.
Okay, so market, get the lead, and then remarket back to it through whatever mechanism you possibly can until that person rents a property.
That's correct.
Right, and until they rent it, you're going to be their best friend, and then you're going to be their property manager. Okay.
Hopefully, yeah.
Okay, so understand that, and that makes a lot of sense. Andrew, how do you think about sort of marketing? Is it just on, because you guys have one of the leading sites in Kazakhstan and Central Asia around this? Do you just market on that site, or do you market on all sites?
No, we think about this, like I really like the quote from Bezos, like, I don't mind paying to Facebook for a customer, but I mind paying more than once. So we basically, our goal is to acquire the customer and keep him with us. And we just look at it purely at the CPL basis. So we get leads from Facebook, we get leads from Google, we get tons of leads from our own portal, we get leads from emails, SMSs, other property portals. People bring it to us. It really doesn't matter as long as the CPL versus the revenue per transaction adds up, we'll take it.
Okay. And then once you get those leads, they then go into a central management pool.
Correct. It's absolutely critical to have that lead management portal. So you have basically 20 sources of leads of different quantity and quality, and be able to process them. So at the end, the receiving agent, closing agent has a high quality product coming to him. That's a critical competence, I think. It's actually a much harder part than the lead generation itself.
Okay. And Ronnie, what about your side? When you think about lead generation, how do you go about doing that? Do you market everywhere humanly possible?
Exactly, that's our strategy. We had rely a lot on Facebook in the past. Now we're kind of spreading the eggs through different baskets. So we use Imóvel Web from Navent, Grupo Zap, OLX, Mercado Libre. We are investing on our own platform, but that's the SEO work's going to pay off more on the long term. And once that lead's generated, then we do a very good job on qualifying that lead, through automation, through WhatsApp automation technology that we developed in-house, and also on the management process. If you talk to that lead and for whatever reason he or she is not quite there to ready to buy or ready to go and start visiting properties, there's a lot of automation involved on our CIM system as well, and we do, like Andrew said, we do a lot of SMS, WhatsApp, emails, and so on. To make sure that that lead, whenever he or she is ready to buy, they're going to remember us, and we're going to catch them right at the moment that they're, okay, I'm ready to buy.
Okay. Now, for all of you, there's something similar to date, is that it's highly automated, very reliant on technology, and very little human interaction in this process. Now we sort of hit the interesting nexus point. The lead comes in, you've been managing the lead electronically, it's now a hot lead or a lead that needs to be closed out. How do you close out these leads? Let's say, start with you, Alejandro. How do you take a lead, close it out in such a way that you reduce the costs, reduce wastage in the process?
Yeah, and I'd say probably in our business model, which is rentals, I would say speed is even more critical, because it's usually a transaction where the clients don't take as much time thinking about just closing the transaction versus a buy-sell transaction, which is probably more emotional, etc. So, and especially in our market where there's no exclusivity basis, so it's the law of the fastest. We really need to beat everybody to the punch. So we're able to do this just by automating bottom of the funnel processes, which is doing the application for the credit screening and risk study of the potential tenant, because we're a fintech enabled marketplace where we provide as well rental guarantee services to landlords. So we're able to really quickly do that screening in matter of minutes. And then once we have an approved tenant, we just send over digital contracts with digital signature, and we're able to close in less than 24 hours.
That does raise an interesting question, and that's the same with all of you. Is how do you ensure that your buyer or your renter is someone who can pay the bill, and Alejandro, in your case, pay the bill every month, and ensure that things don't fall over in that process? Do you, especially you, Alejandro, do you offer insurance? Is there some mechanism or process that you provide to help make sure this process continues for a long time, and thus you keep getting paid, which is the other thing that's important?
Yeah, so the insurance space is pretty critical, especially because it's one of the strongest pain points on the demand side. So for potential tenants, it's usually a pain to get co-signers and get all the paperwork and all the red tape. We're able to do this all digitally and pretty much instantly by integrating ourselves with credit bureaus and just leveraging a bunch of non-traditional data points, such as the usage in our products, navigation patterns, the kind of conversations and questions that a potential tenant makes. It's also a probable sign of their future payment behavior. So we're leveraging all of this data and just building machine learning algorithms that are learning more and more by the day. And eventually we're going to be able to really broaden our scope in terms of providing that guarantee to everybody. Right now, we're probably in our infancy, and we do it on a somewhat stringent basis, but eventually we will be able to serve a much broader market.
And so, Ronnie, how do you handle closing out these transactions? I mean, you've got a rather innovative model, right? You've got a large sales force, but you don't necessarily own the sales force.
Correct. Well, the transaction, it really happens offline. I mean, there are a few examples where the transaction actually happened 100% online, but that was more of it happens more with investors rather than people buying their first home. And I think that's not going to change in the near future, just because, the average Brazilian buys 0.89 properties in their lifetime. So there's a lot of people that never get to buy their houses, and a lot of people just buy once. So it's a very sentimental and important emotional purchase. So they do want to have that offline experience and visit and actually close the deal in present. So that, kind of complicates a little bit on digital, making digital that very last process. But, with the pandemic, most of the developers, if not all of them, are now accepting, DocuSign, which, before March, they didn't accept. So we're moving slowly towards that direction. And in terms of guaranteeing and make sure that the buyer actually can afford that property, that transaction, we rely that on the developers, since with all the developers in Brazil, that's how the process works. They do a credit check. They're doing all that on their end, and once they give us the approval, then we get together, put the contract together, and get the signature of all the parties.
Okay. And then how do you talk about this Uberization of your workforce? How do you use an app to really drive leads?
Sure. Well, like you said, we have a large sales force. Thousands of people have signed up for the El Cubo network. So we kind of created an MLS, if you will, of new homes here in Brazil. And so a lot of people sign up for that, and they use that for free. If they sell through us, they can leverage the relationship that we have with the developer, so they get a higher commission if they were to sell directly or with any other agent here in São Paulo. And once we call them premium agents. Once they go through a lot of stages, they do training, they actually bring leads and get transactions done with us. Then, they qualify towards the app, the iBroker, which we called. And on that program, we actually, taking all the risk generating leads, pre-qualifying through a lot of automation. And then once that lead is ready to talk to an agent, we use an algorithm where we distribute this lead to, just like an Uber ride, to, 5, 10, 15, 20 agents with the, based on our algorithm, where we say, these are the guys that have the highest closing probability. And whoever gets that lead first earns the right and exclusivity to work out that lead. Obviously, throughout the process, we send communications with the lead to make sure that there is a high NPS score, and the agent is actually delivering a good experience to the lead. And if that is not happening, we relocate the hot lead, as we call, to a different agent. So that's how we kind of are trying to replicate the Uberization process. It's not quite as simple as taking a ride from point A to point B. We do have to get involved, and we learned that in the hard way. But we're learning with the process, and we're happy with what we have done so far.
Okay. Thank you, Ronnie. Andrew, how are you guys approaching closing up the deal? How automated is it, and how manual is it in that process?
So, our goal is to automate it 100% in the future, right? And even now, you can push a couple of transactions. It's a big PR thing, but that's not where the market is. It still involves a lot of human interaction, especially in the closing part, right? So what we do is like Uber, like we want to make sure that the best lead meets the best seller, right? So we score the leads and we score the sellers, and we make sure that if a lead is very hot, very interested, he gets a really good salesperson, right? If he's not that interested, then maybe somebody who's less qualified is willing to play around with him, right? So that's one big part of the success in this business. And then we basically take it gradually. So we look at what are these people doing and where do they mess up, and we automate that part gradually, thus removing the number of touch points in which a human interaction is necessary. So we start manually, we observe, we automate, and gradually remove the human interaction. But honestly, I think it's going to be a very long time until it's fully removed. So I think it's going to be a very tech-enabled process, but I think it's going to take a while until it's automated.
Okay, makes sense. Alejandro, I think a quick question for you has come in. Is it, what about the approach of to the transaction with tools like self-visiting of a flat, using technology to sort of self-visits and show yourself around? Is that applicable in your markets?
Yeah, definitely. And that's something that we probably are going to start piloting over the next couple of months, especially if we see the same trend with the COVID-related restrictions in our local markets as well. Because even though it's going to be impossible, as Andrew was saying, to take the physical visit out of the equation, there's some ways to limit the amount of human interaction and the amount of parties in a single visit. So what we're doing is we're going to start piloting self-visits, where we put lock boxes, which is a strong innovation here in our local Colombian market, and just sending SMSs and codes for people to get the password to open that lockbox and let themselves in and out. But it's important as well in emerging markets to do a vetting of that potential tenant as well, because there could be some crime probability. So we work as well with some partners to do that previous checkup.
Yes, there's clearly some interesting issues that you'll have to address over time.
Agree.
To ensure that those sort of models work. What I like is what each of you are doing is really taking the existing processes and applying technology to really drive efficiency and effectiveness. And sort of in Andrew, in your case, you've got a market-leading portal that helps drive. So you've got this sort of end-to-end process with a portal bolted on, so that hopefully drops the cost of acquisition. Ronnie, I like what you're doing with this sort of concept of I want to enhance my sales force, so I will Uberize the existing sales force, so I can work for Century 21 today as well as for Al Cubo, and it's just about who I close out the deal and you share in the commission. And Alejandro, I like what you're doing there in terms of how do I really drive efficiency and optimization of the rentals process, with the goal that once I place the tenant in the apartment, I'm then going to be the rental manager or the property manager, and I'm creating this annuity, which I love. Right, the fact that I can go to bed, wake up in the morning, and there's money in my bank account, and I haven't had to do anything except, go to bed and wake up, I think is very, very important. So congratulations to all of you in what you're doing in terms of these highly innovative business models. And I'm looking forward to seeing how each of these grow over the next 3, 4, 5 years. So congratulations and well done.
What's up? I'm Matt from Pseudonym. WhatsApp is the world's most popular messaging platform, and marketplace users are increasingly connecting, inquiring, negotiating, and transacting on it. But how do you, the marketplace, keep visibility and control of this process? We can help. With our WhatsApp solutions, you can prove in concrete terms the leads you're generating for your sellers. You can tell if and when those sellers are responding, you can block spammers, and you can do a whole lot more. Contact us on WhatsApp, of course, via the link on your screen to talk about how we can help. The first 5 conference attendees to sign up will get an awesome bonus.